Billionaire moved by Black Twins song, they had no idea he was their lost father. The crowd roared as the final note of Homecoming echoed through the packed auditorium. 19-year-old twins Elijah and Elise Johnson stood frozen in the spotlight, their voices still resonating in the air like a lingering prayer. They had performed this song countless times in subway stations and small community centers, but never before at the prestigious Harmony Hall benefit concert, and never before with the man who had funded their musical education watching from the front row. Through the blinding lights, they could see him, Marcus Westfield, the reclusive billionaire philanthropist. Tears streamed down his weathered face as he gripped the armrests of his chair, knuckles white with tension. The twins exchanged puzzled glances as the enigmatic man who had changed their lives with an anonymous scholarship 5 years ago slowly rose to his feet. "It's them," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. "My God, it's really them." No one else heard his words, but his assistant Charlotte, who had been by his side for 25 years, saw the color drain from his face. She hadn't seen that expression since 1998, the year he had lost everything that mattered. 15 years earlier, 2010, Marcus Westfield stared at the skyline of Chicago from his penthouse office, the city lights twinkling like the stars he rarely had time to observe. At 45, he had built Westfield Technologies into a billion-dollar empire, pioneering breakthroughs in renewable energy that had revolutionized the industry. His company was changing the world, but he couldn't shake the emptiness that had haunted him for over a decade. "Sir, your 3 o'clock call to confirm," said Charlotte, placing a stack of reports on his desk. Her eyes lingered on the framed photograph he kept hidden in his desk drawer, the only one he had of Amara. "Thank you, Charlotte," he replied, quickly closing the drawer. "And the foundation paperwork. All ready for your signature. The Westfield Foundation for Young Artists will be officially launched next month." Marcus nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of his desk. "Good. Make sure the scholarship committee understands my parameters. I want to find exceptional talent in underprivileged communities, kids who would never have a chance otherwise." Charlotte had worked for Marcus long enough to know that this foundation wasn't just another tax write-off or PR stunt. There was something personal driving his sudden interest in supporting young musicians, something connected to the woman in the photograph, the jazz singer he had fallen in love with in the summer of 1997, before his career had taken off, before the world knew his name. "I'll make sure they understand," Charlotte replied. She hesitated, then asked the question she'd been holding back for years. "Is this about her? About Amara?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "The past is the past, Charlotte. This is about giving opportunities to those who deserve them." His tone made it clear the subject was closed, but they both knew the truth that hung in the air between them. What Charlotte didn't know, what no one knew, was that Marcus had spent the last 12 years searching for any trace of Amara Johnson after she had disappeared from his life. Their romance had been brief but intense, crossing boundaries that had seemed insignificant to them, but had been unforgivable to his conservative family. When his father threatened to disinherit him and destroy Amara's budding singing career, Marcus had made the decision to end things, planning to reconnect with her after securing his position in the company. But by the time he went looking for her 6 months later, she had vanished without a trace. Present day, 2025, in the modest 2-bedroom apartment on Chicago's South Side, Elijah Johnson adjusted his tie while his sister Elise applied the finishing touches to her makeup. Their grandmother, Beatrice, watched from the doorway, her eyes glistening with pride and something deeper, a protective fear she had carried since the day her daughter had placed the twins in her arms hours before passing away. "Remember what I always tell you," Beatrice said, her voice carrying the rich cadence of her Louisiana upbringing. "When you sing for Mama." The twins finished in unison, a ritual they had observed before every performance since they were old enough to hold a tune. Elijah crossed the room and embraced the woman who had raised them. At 72, Beatrice's body had grown frail, but her spirit remained unbreakable. She had worked 2 jobs most of her life to keep food on the table, only retiring last year when the twins' growing reputation as street performers had begun to bring in steady income. "We got this, Grandma," Elijah assured her. "Tonight could change everything for us." Elise joined the embrace, careful not to smudge her makeup. "Mr. Peterson said there will be people from Berklee College of Music there, and that billionaire who gave us the mysterious scholarship, he's finally going to reveal himself." Beatrice stiffened slightly at the mention of the scholarship that had appeared out of nowhere 5 years ago, covering their music lessons and equipment. She had been suspicious of the anonymous donor, but the opportunity had been too important to pass up. Just remember who you are and where you come from, Beatrice said firmly. No matter what happens tonight, you two stick together, you hear me? The world out there isn't always kind to people like us. The twins nodded solemnly. They had experienced enough racial prejudice growing up in Chicago to understand their grandmother's warning. Their music had been their shield and their sword, allowing them to transcend barriers while never letting them forget those barriers existed. As they gathered their sheet music and headed for the door, Elijah paused by the small shrine they kept for their mother, a framed photograph of a beautiful young woman with their same caramel skin and expressive eyes, taken when she was just 22, performing at a jazz club. Beside it sat her most precious possession, a vintage vinyl record of Ella Fitzgerald's How High the Moon. "Sing with us tonight, Mama," Elijah whispered, touching the frame gently. Neither twin noticed the small, folded newspaper clipping that had fallen from behind the frame, a decades-old review of Amara Johnson's performance at the Blue Note, with a partially visible figure in the background. A young white man with intense eyes, watching the singer with unmistakable adoration. At Harmony Hall, Marcus Westfield paced in the green room, his heart hammering against his ribs. Charlotte watched him with concern, having never seen her boss this agitated. "Are you sure about this, Marcus?" she asked. "After all these years, to spring this on them tonight." "I've waited long enough," Marcus interrupted, running a hand through his silver-streaked hair. 15 years searching, Charlotte. 15 years of dead ends and false hopes until your team found that connection through the DNA ancestry database. Charlotte sighed. She had been the one to suggest using the popular DNA ancestry service as a last resort in their search for Amara. When the system had flagged a potential familial match to Marcus in Chicago, not Amara, but two young people who shared his genetic markers, she had almost not told him, fearing what it might mean. "They think they're here because of their talent," Charlotte reminded him. "And they are talented, but finding out their anonymous benefactor is actually their biological father, a white billionaire they've never met, that's going to be a shock, especially in public." Marcus stopped pacing, his eyes falling on the small jewelry box in his hand. Inside was the only physical evidence he had of his relationship with Amara, a silver music note pendant he had given her on their last night together. "I found it among their grandmother's information when we were setting up the scholarship," he explained, seeing Charlotte's questioning look. "Beatrice Johnson, she must be Amara's mother. She's raised them all these years, never knowing who I was." His voice broke slightly. "Amara never told her about me. Or never had the chance to," Charlotte said gently. "You said she died in childbirth." Marcus nodded, the pain still fresh despite the passage of time. "If I had known she was pregnant, if I hadn't listened to my father." A knock at the door interrupted his moment of regret. "Mr. Westfield, the program is about to begin. You're introducing the Johnson twins in 20 minutes. If you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. We bring emotional, powerful stories like this one to you every week, and your support means everything to us." The Harmony Hall benefit concert had drawn Chicago's elite, with tickets selling for $1,000 apiece to support arts education in underfunded schools. The irony wasn't lost on Elise and Elijah as they peered from behind the curtain at the wealthy audience dressed in designer clothes, sipping champagne. "Remember when we couldn't afford bus fare to get to our lessons?" Elise whispered to her brother. Elijah squeezed her hand. "And now these people are paying $1,000 to hear us sing. Life is weird." Their music teacher, Mr. Peterson, approached with an excited smile. He had discovered the twins performing in a subway station 6 years ago and had fought to get them proper training, eventually connecting them with the mysterious scholarship that had changed their trajectory. "You two ready to knock some socks off?" he asked, straightening Elijah's already perfect tie. At 67, Peterson had been teaching music in Chicago's public schools since the days of cassette tapes and boom boxes, weathering budget cuts and program eliminations with stubborn dedication. "Born ready," Elijah replied, though his bouncing leg betrayed his nerves. Peterson lowered his voice. "Word is, Marcus Westfield himself specifically requested you two for this event. Do you know what that means? The man funds half the arts programs in this city but never shows his face at these things." "Something about your music spoke to him." Elise felt a flutter of anxiety. "But why us? We're nobody." "Not anymore, you're not," Peterson said firmly. "After tonight, doors are going to open for you that you can't even imagine. Just remember this old man when you're famous, all right?" As Peterson walked away, Elise turned to her brother. "Do you ever wonder about him? Our father, I mean." It was a subject they rarely broached. According to their grandmother, their mother had never revealed the identity of their father, taking that secret to her grave. All they knew was that he hadn't been around, and in their minds that made him irrelevant. "What's to wonder?" Elijah replied with practiced indifference. "He didn't want us, end of story." Elise wasn't so sure. "But what if he didn't know about us? What if don't?" Elijah cut her off, more sharply than he intended. "Tonight is about our future, not our past." Before Elise could respond, the stage manager signaled them to take their positions. As they moved into place, neither twin noticed the tall figure watching them from the wings, his hands trembling as he clutched a small velvet box. Marcus Westfield had rehearsed this moment in his mind countless times over the past month, since confirming that Elijah and Elise Johnson were, without a doubt, his biological children. But standing before the microphone, looking out at the expectant faces of Chicago's elite, words failed him. "Good evening," he began, his voice catching slightly. "I am not one for public speeches." This drew a gentle laugh from the audience, who knew the famously private billionaire primarily through his innovations and philanthropy, not his personal appearances. "Tonight is special," Marcus continued, finding his rhythm. "5 years ago, I established the Westfield Foundation for Young Artists with a simple goal: to find extraordinary talent in places most of us never look, to nurture voices that might otherwise go unheard." In the wings, Elijah and Elise listened intently, still unaware of the bombshell about to drop on their lives. "The first recipients of our major scholarship program were two remarkable young people who I'm proud to present to you tonight." Marcus paused, fighting for composure. "Their journey hasn't been easy. Raised by their grandmother after losing their mother, they've overcome obstacles that would defeat most of us. Yet their music contains something I recognized immediately, something I once found in another voice many years ago." Charlotte, watching from the side, saw Marcus veering from the approved script and tensed. They had agreed he would save the personal revelations for after the performance in private. "Talent runs in their blood," Marcus said, his gaze drifting toward the twins. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elijah and Elise Johnson performing their original composition, Homecoming." As the twins took the stage to enthusiastic applause, Marcus retreated to his front row seat, heart pounding. He had come so close to saying too much too soon. The first notes from Elise's keyboard filled the hall, joined by Elijah's gentle guitar strumming. Their performance style was unique, a blend of soul, jazz, and classical influences that defied easy categorization. When they began to sing, their voices intertwining in perfect harmony, a hush fell over the audience. The lyrics of Homecoming told the story of a journey back to a place never visited, a sense of belonging somewhere unknown. They had written it during their final year of high school, channeling their questions about identity and origin into art. As Marcus listened, tears formed in his eyes. They had Amara's voice, her soulfulness, her range, her ability to convey emotion with the slightest inflection. But he could hear himself, too, in the structure of their compositions, in the unexpected chord progressions that had always been his signature when he played piano in college, before business became his life. They were his children, and they had no idea. The performance ended to thunderous applause, the wealthy audience on their feet. For Elijah and Elise, it was a triumph beyond their wildest dreams, until they noticed the strange reaction of their benefactor in the front row. Why was this powerful man, this stranger, looking at them with such naked emotion? Why did it feel somehow familiar? After the performance, as guests mingled at the reception, Marcus stood apart from the crowd, gathering his courage. Charlotte approached with the twins in tow, making the formal introduction they all believed was their first. "Mr. Westfield," Charlotte said, "may I present Elijah and Elise Johnson, the stars of tonight's performance." Marcus extended his hand, struggling to maintain his composure. "Your performance was extraordinary, truly extraordinary." "Thank you, sir," Elijah replied, shaking his hand firmly. "And thank you for the scholarship. It changed our lives." "We wouldn't be here without your foundation's support," Elise added, noticing something strange in the billionaire's expression as he looked at them, a hunger, a searching quality that made her slightly uncomfortable. "Please call me Marcus," he said, his voice softer now. "I was hoping we might speak privately. There's something important I'd like to discuss with you both." The twins exchanged glances, communicating in the wordless way they had since childhood. "Course," Elijah answered for them both, curiosity overcoming his initial wariness. Marcus led them to a small private lounge off the main reception area, Charlotte following discreetly behind. Once inside, an awkward silence fell. The twins stood together, unconsciously adopting the protective stance they'd perfected growing up in their tough neighborhood. "I'm not sure how to begin," Marcus admitted, pacing slightly. "I've imagined this moment for so long, but now that it's here." "Begin what exactly?" Elijah asked, his guard rising. Growing up black on Chicago's South Side had taught him to be wary of unusual interest from powerful white men, no matter how benevolent they seemed. Marcus stopped pacing and faced them directly. "Did your grandmother ever tell you about your father?" The question hit them like a physical blow. Elise instinctively reached for her brother's hand. "Our father wasn't in the picture," Elijah replied coldly. "Never has been." "That's not entirely accurate," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the small velvet box, opening it to reveal the silver music note pendant. "This belonged to your mother, Amara. I gave it to her in 1997. Elise gasped. The pendant was identical to the one in their mother's photograph, the one that hung in their living room shrine. "How do you have that?" she demanded, her voice shaking. Marcus took a deep breath. "Because I'm the one who gave it to her. I loved your mother very much, but circumstances, my family, I made choices I've regretted every day since." His eyes filled with tears. "I never knew she was pregnant. I never knew about you, if I had." "What are you saying?" Elijah interrupted, though he already knew the answer, could feel it in the sudden hollowness in his stomach. "I'm your father," Marcus said simply. "I've spent the last 15 years searching for Amara, never knowing she had died, never knowing you existed until a DNA ancestry database matched us 5 years ago. That's when I created the scholarship, to find a way back to you without disrupting your lives." Silence filled the room, heavy and charged. Elise's mind raced through memories, the mysterious scholarship appearing just when they needed it most, the specific opportunities that seemed tailor-made for their talents, the anonymous donor who took such interest in their progress. "That's impossible," Elijah said flatly, though doubt had begun to creep in. "Our mother would have told our grandmother." "Unless she couldn't," Elise whispered, the pieces falling into place. "Grandma always said Mom died just hours after we were born." "What if she never had the chance?" If you're watching from home, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to our channel and comment below to let us know what part of the country or the world you're tuning in from. Your engagement helps us continue bringing stories like this one to viewers everywhere. Marcus stepped forward, hope and fear battling in his expression. "I know this is a shock. I know you have no reason to believe me or accept me. But I've waited so long to find you to tell you that you were never unwanted or forgotten. If you'll let me, I'd like the chance to explain everything." Elijah's face hardened. "So what is this? Rich white man discovers he has black children and suddenly wants to play daddy. Where were you for 19 years? "Elijah," Elise cautioned, though she understood her brother's anger. "No, he's right to ask," Marcus said, accepting the accusation. "I wasn't there. Nothing can change that. But there's more to the story than you know." He walked to the window, gathering his thoughts before turning back to face them. "Your mother and I met when I was still in graduate school before Westfield Technologies existed. She was performing at a jazz club near campus. I went back every night for a week just to hear her sing." Despite himself, Elijah was drawn into the story. They knew so little about their mother, treasured every scrap of information about her. "We fell in love quickly," Marcus continued. "But it was 1997 and my family. They were old money, old values. When they found out about Amara, my father threatened to cut me off completely. I wasn't worried about the money, but he also threatened to use his connections to destroy her career." "So you chose your inheritance over her," Elijah concluded bitterly. "No," Marcus said firmly. "I chose what I thought was best for her future. I ended things, planning to establish myself independently from my family first, then find her again when I could protect her from their influence." His voice broke. "It was the worst mistake of my life. When I went looking for her 6 months later, she had disappeared. I've been searching ever since." Elise studied the man before them, his silver-streaked dark hair, his tall frame, the shape of his hands that looked so much like Elijah's. "You really didn't know about us?" "Not until 5 years ago," Marcus confirmed. "I had been using private investigators for years trying to find any trace of Amara. When DNA ancestry databases became popular, I submitted my profile as a last resort. When the match came back." He smiled sadly. "I couldn't believe it. Twin children, her children, our children. So the scholarship, the opportunities, it was all just a way to get close to us?" Elijah asked, still suspicious. "It was the only way I could think of to help you without disrupting your lives," Marcus admitted. "I wanted to know you were okay, to make sure you had every advantage I could provide. I was afraid if I just appeared out of nowhere claiming to be your father, it would be too much of a shock." "Unlike dropping the bomb in the middle of a charity gala?" Elijah retorted. Marcus winced. "That wasn't the plan. I was going to invite you to my office next week, tell you privately, but seeing you perform tonight. Hearing your mother's voice in your music, I couldn't wait any longer. Charlotte, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. He's telling the truth. I've watched him search for your mother for 15 years, then for you for the past 5. Whatever mistakes he made in the past, his love for your mother was real, and his desire to know you is sincere. Elise stepped forward and took the pendant from the box Marcus still held, examining it closely. I've seen this in photographs of our mother. She's wearing it in the picture we keep at home. I know, Marcus said softly. I saw it when I had your grandmother's apartment renovated last year, another anonymous gift. I recognized it immediately. The revelation of yet another secret intervention in their lives left the twins momentarily speechless. Their entire world was shifting beneath their feet, everything they thought they knew about their origins transforming in real time. I think we need some time, Elise finally said, looking to her brother for confirmation. This is a lot. Elijah nodded, his expression unreadable. Yeah, we need to talk to our grandmother, see if she knows anything about this. Of course, Marcus agreed quickly, not wanting to push too hard. Take all the time you need. I've waited 19 years. I can wait a little longer. He reached into his jacket and produced a business card, offering it to them. My private number is on the back. Call any time, day or night, and there's something else. From his other pocket, he withdrew an envelope. Whether or not you decide to let me be part of your lives, this is yours. It's your inheritance, a trust fund I established when I confirmed you were my children. You can use it for college, for your music career, for anything you want. It's not contingent on any relationship with me. Elijah stared at the envelope but made no move to take it. We don't want your money. It's not about money, Marcus insisted. It's about giving you the opportunities you deserve, the support your mother would have wanted you to have. Please take it. If you never want to see me again, I'll understand, but don't punish yourselves to punish me. After a moment's hesitation, Elise accepted the envelope. Thank you, we'll think about everything you've said. As they prepared to leave, Marcus made one final plea. There's one more thing you should know. Your mother, she wrote you a letter. She gave it to her doctor to deliver to you when you turned 18, but the doctor retired and the letter was misplaced. My investigators found it 2 months ago. This stopped both twins in their tracks. A letter from our mother? Elise whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Marcus nodded. I haven't read it. It's addressed to you both. I've been waiting for the right moment to give it to you. He reached into his jacket once more and produced a slightly yellowed envelope, Amara's elegant handwriting visible on the front. For my children on their 18th birthday. This time, Elijah was the one who stepped forward, taking the letter with trembling hands. Thank you for this, at least. As they left the room, the twins clung to each other, neither speaking until they were safely in the taxi heading home. The letter sat between them, unopened, a bridge to the mother they had never known and the father they never knew existed. Back at the gala, Charlotte found Marcus staring out the window, watching the taxi disappear into the Chicago night. Do you think they'll call? She asked gently. Marcus sighed, looking older than his 60 years. I don't know, but at least they know the truth now. At least they know they weren't abandoned. In the modest apartment on the south side, Beatrice Johnson was waiting up for her grandchildren, a habit she had never broken despite their age. When they walked in, their expressions told her something momentous had occurred. What happened? She asked, setting aside her knitting. Did you meet those music school people? The twins exchanged glances before Elijah spoke. Grandma, we need to ask you something about Mom and our father. Beatrice's hands stilled. She had always known this day might come, had prepared for it in her mind, but now that it was here, she felt a flutter of panic. What about him? Did you ever meet him? Elise asked gently. Did Mom ever tell you his name? The old woman sighed deeply, her shoulders sagging. Your mama never said his name, just that he was someone she loved who couldn't be with her. I assumed. She hesitated. Well, I assumed he was a married man or someone who didn't want to acknowledge having children with a black woman. His name is Marcus Westfield, Elijah said, watching his grandmother's reaction carefully. He says he loved Mom, that he didn't know about us until 5 years ago. Beatrice's eyes widened. Marcus Westfield, the billionaire, the one who's been sending you those scholarships. She shook her head in disbelief. That can't be right. He had this, Elise said, showing her grandmother the silver pendant. And he knew things about Mom, about how they met. Beatrice took the pendant, recognition dawning in her eyes. Amara treasured this. She never told me who gave it to her, but she wore it every day until... Her voice trailed off, memories of her daughter's final days washing over her. There's more, Elijah said, holding up the letter. He found a letter Mom wrote to us before she died. We haven't opened it yet. Beatrice reached out, taking both their hands in hers. Whatever's in that letter, whatever this man says, nothing changes who you are. You're Johnsons. You're your mama's children. You come from strength and dignity. But if he's telling the truth, Elise pressed, if he really didn't know about us. Then that's something you'll have to decide how to feel about, Beatrice said wisely. But take your time, don't rush into anything. The twins nodded, grateful for their grandmother's steady presence. Together, they moved to the kitchen table, placing the letter in the center. Should we open it? Elise asked, her voice barely audible. Elijah nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. With careful movements, he unsealed the envelope and unfolded the pages within, revealing their mother's handwriting, a connection to her they had never had before. "My dearest children," he read aloud, his voice breaking on the first words. "If you're reading this, it means I am no longer with you, and for that, I am so deeply sorry. There is nothing in this world I wanted more than to watch you grow, to hear your first words, to see you become the incredible people I know you will be. I write this not knowing if I will survive bringing you into this world. The doctors have warned me of complications, but I have chosen to continue this pregnancy because you, my children, are the greatest gift of my life. There is so much I want to tell you, so much I fear I won't have the chance to say. But most importantly, I want you to know about your father. His name is Marcus Westfield. We met when I was singing at the Blue Note, and he was the most gentle, brilliant soul I had ever encountered. We fell in love quickly, deeply, but forces beyond our control pulled us apart. His family did not approve of us, and made it impossible for us to be together. Marcus ended our relationship to protect me from their influence, planning to return when he could stand on his own. He does not know about you. By the time I discovered I was pregnant, he had already left Chicago, and my pride kept me from seeking him out. This was my mistake, one I hope you can forgive. If somehow, someday, you find each other, please know that your father is a good man who would have loved you completely had he known of your existence. Do not judge him for my choices or for circumstances neither of us could control. I have asked my mother to raise you with all the love and strength that has defined the Johnson family for generations. But know that you are also Westfield's, heirs to that legacy as well, should you choose to claim it. My sweet babies, my greatest regret is not being there to guide you. My greatest hope is that you will find your voices in music, in life, in love. I hear you singing already here beneath my heart, harmonizing with each other as only twins can. With eternal love, your mother, Amara Johnson. Silence filled the apartment as the last words hung in the air. Tears streamed down all three faces as they absorbed the revelation, the confirmation of everything Marcus had told them. She knew she might not survive, Elise whispered, devastated by this new understanding of her mother's sacrifice. And she didn't want us to blame him, Elijah added, his earlier anger giving way to confusion. Beatrice wiped her eyes. Your mama always saw the best in people. If she loved this man, there must have been good in him. Elijah stared at the letter, at his mother's elegant handwriting. She wanted us to find our voices. And we have, Elise said softly, through music, just like she hoped. The three sat together in silence, processing all that had happened, all that had been revealed. After some time, Elijah reached for his phone. What are you doing? Elise asked. Calling him, Elijah replied, his expression determined. Not to forgive or forget or suddenly become one big happy family, but to talk, to understand. Mom wanted us to know him, to make our own choice. I think we owe it to her to at least listen. Elise nodded, placing her hand over her brother's as he dialed the number. Mr. Westfield, it's Elijah Johnson. My sister and I, we'd like to meet, to talk. He paused, listening. Yes, we read it. We know what she wanted. Another pause. Tomorrow, neutral ground, the music room at our community center on 47th Street. It's where we first started performing. As he ended the call, Elise squeezed his hand. Are you sure about this? No, Elijah admitted, but I'm sure about you, about us. Whatever happens with him, we face it together like we always have. Beatrice watched her grandchildren with pride mingled with apprehension. They were standing at the threshold of a new chapter, one that would either heal old wounds or create new ones. But they would face it with the strength and dignity of the Johnsons. And perhaps, she now realized, with the determination and vision of the Westfields as well. The next day, as late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of the community center music room, Marcus Westfield stood alone, examining the humble space where his children had first developed their extraordinary talent. The worn piano, the mismatched chairs, the inspirational posters about music changing lives, it was a far cry from the privileged upbringing he had experienced. When the door opened, he turned to see not only Elijah and Elise entering, but Beatrice Johnson as well, her posture straight despite her age, her eyes assessing him with cautious dignity. Mrs. Johnson, Marcus said, inclining his head respectfully. I didn't expect to meet you today, but I'm very glad for the opportunity. I owe you a debt I can never repay for raising my children with such love and strength. Beatrice studied him carefully. You look like him. she said finally, addressing Elijah. Same height, same way of standing, I never saw it before. The observation hung in the air, an acknowledgement of the truth none of them could deny. I want you to know, Marcus continued, addressing all three, that I'm not here to disrupt your family or make claims. I just want the chance to know Elijah and Elise, to be whatever they'll allow me to be in their lives. You said you have proof, Elijah said, coming straight to the point. About you and our mother. Marcus nodded, setting his briefcase on a nearby table and withdrawing a photo album. These are the only pictures I have of Amara and me together. There aren't many, we were only together for 4 months. The twins moved closer, drawn by this tangible connection to their past. Photographs showed a younger Marcus with their mother at the lakefront at a cafe at the very jazz club where they had met. In every image, their mother's smile was radiant, her eyes alive with joy and love. She was so beautiful, Elise whispered, touching one photograph gently. The most beautiful woman I've ever known, Marcus agreed, his voice thick with emotion. Inside and out. As they turned the pages, Marcus narrated each memory, painting a picture of the brief, intense romance that had produced them. The final photograph showed Amara wearing the silver pendant, standing beside Marcus at a piano, both of them laughing at something now lost to time. This was the last night we spent together, Marcus explained, before my father's ultimatum, before everything fell apart. Elijah studied the image intently. You play piano, Marcus nodded. I studied classical piano for 15 years. It was my passion before business took over my life. That explains it, Elise said softly, looking at her brother. Our compositions, the way we structure chord progressions, everyone always said it was unusual for self-taught musicians. We weren't entirely self-taught, Elijah realized. It was in our blood, both sides. For the first time, a tentative connection formed between them, not just the biological link they now understood existed, but something deeper, a shared language of music that transcended the years of separation. Would you? Marcus hesitated, then gestured toward the piano. Would you play something together? The twins exchanged glances, communicating silently as they had their entire lives. After a moment, they moved to the instruments, Elise to the piano, Elijah picking up a guitar from a nearby stand. This is something we've been working on, Elise explained, her fingers finding the keys. It doesn't have a name yet. As they began to play, Marcus watched in wonder. The melody was hauntingly familiar, elements of classical structure interwoven with jazz improvisation, a perfect blend of his technical precision and Amara's soulful expression. Without thinking, he moved to the piano, standing behind Elise. May I? She nodded, sliding over to make room. Marcus sat beside his daughter and began to play, adding a countermelody that complemented their composition perfectly, as if it had always been meant to be there. Beatrice Johnson watched from across the room, tears in her eyes as music filled the space, 3 parts of a whole, finding harmony after years of silence. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. It wasn't a family reunited, not quite. But it was a beginning, a recognition of shared blood and shared passion that transcended the mistakes and misunderstandings of the past. As the final notes faded, Elijah looked at Marcus with new eyes. I think we should call it Homecoming, he said quietly. Not the song we performed last night. This one, the 3 of us. Marcus smiled, hope blooming in his chest for the first time in decades. I'd like that very much. Outside the community center, as dusk settled over Chicago, 3 generations stood together, tentative, cautious, but connected by invisible threads of blood and music and love. The past could not be changed, but the future stretched before them, full of possibility. One day at a time, Beatrice said wisely, looking between her grandchildren and the man who had helped create them. That's how we'll do this, one note at a time. Marcus nodded, understanding the gift he was being offered, not forgiveness, not yet, but opportunity. A chance to know his children, to hear their music, to be part of the symphony of their lives in whatever way they would allow. As they walked together toward the future, the melody of Homecoming lingered in the air behind them, a promise of what might be, a bridge across the years of silence, a song just beginning to be heard. If you've enjoyed this story, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below. Your support allows us to continue creating powerful stories that connect us across generations and experiences. Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery, forgiveness, and the enduring power of family bonds.